Hi everyone, it's Nicolette here from the End of Life Care. I'm an end of life doula and coach, and a big part of my role is essentially supporting people who are at the end of their life and their caregivers. And an important part of this is to ensure that they have all of their end of life planning in order and sorted out, so that when they actually die, the people left behind aren't burdened with a whole lot of decision making that needs to occur. So today I'd like to step you through what I cover with people, the end of life planning process. There's a lot involved in ensuring that all of your end of life planning is in order. There's lots of different components to it. There's the financial aspect, there's the medical and health aspect, there's now the digital aspect, and then the funeral and after death care planning aspect. So I will talk you through all of those today and explain some of the terms and what's involved in each of those components. When doing planning with my clients, I often advise them to seek legal advice when need be from lawyers or will writing services. I also advise them to get some financial advice, either from a financial planner or your own accountant in regards to financial matters. And in regards to medical matters, I suggest that you seek some support from either your GP or any specialists that you have involved in your own medical care. And then with funeral planning, then it's also worth talking to funeral directors if that's what you want to do. Another thing to consider, especially in Australia and overseas, is that some of the terms I will be talking about today may not be terms used in your state or your local area. So there are similar processes for each state and each country, but you will need to check out the terminology and what the required forms are or the required protocols are for your individual state or territory or country. So a lot of what I cover is fairly basic, but you will need to seek that extra information out, and I'll point out as we go where there may be different terms used. So firstly, I'd like to look at the financial aspects of what we need to have in place to assist our planning. So one of the most vital documents, I think, and processes that I think is really worth doing for anybody, and you can do this at any stage of your life, is to have a will. A lot of people don't have wills and die intestate, and it really leaves a big burden on those people left behind to manage that estate and work out what to do. It can be quite messy, and it can also lead to families having to go to court to sort these matters out. So a will is a really vital piece of planning to do for yourself. Seek some legal advice, like I said before. It's essentially a legal document. It does need to be legally signed, and it's really to have all of your wishes written down and presented in a legal document so that your assets are distributed the way you would like them to be distributed, and you choose the beneficiaries that you would like to have to receive your assets or your belongings. It's really important to get some good advice around that and have one in place. It's really vital to save future disagreements and arguments. So really important piece of information to have in place. When you're writing a will, you will need to nominate an executor of your will. So this is a person that will basically make sure they will be responsible for making sure that your wishes in your will are adhered to. And they have the role of winding up your estate. They need to sell your assets. They'll need to do a tax return. So it is a really big role. It's very involved. think about who you would choose to have that role, and talk to them and make sure that they want to take that on, because it is a big job, depending on how many assets you have and how complex your estate is. You may also like to appoint a specific lawyer or service to do that for your family if it's too complicated, or you don't want to burden them with that task of sorting out your estate. So that's the executor of a will. Another good reason to have a will written is if you have children under the ages of 18 years, then this is the only place where you can make provisions for them and nominate who would care for them in the event that something happened to both of their parents. So if both their parents die, they need to have a guardian nominated, somebody who would take care of them. Otherwise, they can end up being cared for by the government or the state until they can find appropriate family members or somebody willing to care for the children. And in your will, you can also make financial provisions for them. So it's another good reason to have a will, is to look after your children's interests and make sure that they would be cared for in the event that something happened to both of their parents. Some people also choose to have what's called a discretionary trust. Now, this is a trust that is set up within a will specific to that will, and it's a different way of dispersing assets, generally over a period of time or within a time frame. And it's quite complex. You really do need to get a lawyer to help you set a discretionary trust up. It's often used when there's businesses and or lots of children, or even children with disabilities or that need care over a long period of time, so that they don't necessarily get the whole of the estate straight away, that it is dispersed over a period of time. So something to consider. It does make your will more complex, so please seek legal and financial advice before you proceed with setting up a discretionary trust. Superannuation is something that is a bit of a grey area. People often think that superannuation will be part of an estate, and it's actually not. It's separate to your estate, so you can't make provisions for it within your will. It's a separate entity. Most superannuation funds have a space where you can nominate benefactors to receive the benefits of your superannuation fund upon your death. And you need to update these and check that you have the right people nominated. And then if you want to change your mind, you can change that, but it's worth making sure that it's updated on a regular basis, or find out if your super fund, whether you can have a lifetime nomination for that benefactor to be on there, so you don't have to keep worrying about updating it every few years. But check into it. It's its own asset within itself, so it doesn't come under a part of a will. So you need to manage that in a different way, and speak to your super fund about that, or your financial advisor or your accountant about how to manage that, and make sure your beneficiaries are nominated. Another financial aspect which some people choose to do, especially as they get older and perhaps can see that they may be in a position where they won't be able to make financial decisions for themselves. Often with dementia and Alzheimer's, that sort of starts to come into play for people and families. And they then will appoint what's called a power of attorney. Now, in some states, power of attorney is specifically for financial decisions, but in other states or other countries, it may also mean that it's covering not only your financial decisions, but your medical decisions. So you need to find out what happens locally for you and what the power of attorney covers. So in the situation of financial situation, essentially, if you lose your capacity to make decisions for yourself, having a power of attorney means they have the power then to step into a role of being able to make those decisions for you on your behalf when you can't make them yourselves. And there's a whole definition of what mental capacity or legal capacity is. And it's really when you're totally not in a position to make those decisions. So having an enduring power of attorney means that once if something happened to you that you couldn't make those decisions, that person can then step in and pay your rent, have access to your bank accounts, sell property on your behalf. It's a really big role. So you, again, talk to the person you nominate. Think hard about who you nominate, because they often call it a license to steal, because you're actually giving that person access to all of your finances, all of your property, all of your assets. And there's been situations where families, where children have stolen off their parents, sold assets without their parents knowing. So yeah, it can be open for abuse. So think hard and choose wisely when you're considering a power of attorney and an enduring power of attorney. Next, I'd like to talk about health and medical aspects of planning and what can be put in place to ensure that your health and lifestyle and medical wishes are able to be known and documented and adhered to in a situation when you can't make those decisions for yourself. So first, I'd like to talk about power of guardianship. Now, this is a term in some states where it's specifically for medical decisions. But like I said, in other states, your medical decisions can also come under just your straight power of attorney. It's also called a medical power of attorney. There's different terms, so find out what your term is locally. Where I am, it's called power of guardianship. And essentially what it is you can nominate one person or a group of people, like it could be 2 or 3 people, who, if you lose, again, your mental capacity, it only comes into effect if you can't make medical or lifestyle decisions for yourself. So perhaps if you have dementia and you get to a certain point where you can't make those decisions for yourself. It often is used with mental health issues if people are committed and are in a state where they can't make decisions for themselves, then power of guardianship comes into play. Perhaps you've had a stroke and can't communicate your wishes, or you're in a coma. All those scenarios where you just can't make or communicate your own wishes, then a power of guardianship comes into play. And it's really to ensure, and you need to talk about who you nominate, let them know what your wishes are about what treatments you would like to receive or not receive, and at what point, and let them know what your wishes are, so that then if that situation arose, they can make those decisions for you. They're not trying to consider what you may or may not have wanted. So a big part of it is communicating that to your loved ones. The next aspect of medical planning is called advanced care planning. Now, this is something that sort of took over from what was called a living will, where people would write down their wishes about their lifestyle, their medical wishes, really thinking ahead about how they would like their end of life to be, their end of, where they'd like to be when they're aging or ill, what sort of facilities they would be happy to go into, or whether they'd like to be at home. And so now that's called an advanced care plan. So it really is the planning process. You can write down your wishes still, and it will be covered under common law. But again, check locally what the different laws are, and what forms are available, and talk to your GP because they should know what's available in your local area. But advanced care planning is really looking at your values, what you value in terms of your own health, and what treatments you would be happy with or not happy with receiving, and when you perhaps would like to cease treatments. CPR is a common one that people talk about, where there's certain situations where they would not like to be resuscitated and wouldn't want to receive CPR. So that's a common one that most people think of. But you can think about all sorts of scenarios and write down your wishes. The next step with advanced care planning is to fill out what's called an advanced care directive. These are more legally binding forms. You need to check out what's, in some states they are legally binding, in other states they don't have legally binding under statutory law, legally binding documents. So you need to consider what's available in your local area. But again, it's writing down your wishes, thinking about your values around what treatments you would like to receive or not like to receive, perhaps lifestyle decisions of what sort of care you would like, and having those more in a more statutory legal form. Be aware that if it is legal in your state, if you choose to move, it doesn't transfer with you. You would need to redo that when you move to your new place, and find out what's available locally for you. So really important forms can be really powerful. If something were to happen to you suddenly and you couldn't make those decisions for yourself, then those wishes are there, they're in writing, and essentially they are meant to be adhered to. And doctors, they inform doctors of what sort of care you would like or not like, and they can be really powerful and help your families in their decision-making process around potentially thinking of what sort of care you wouldn't like. But I guess at the bottom of all this planning is have conversations with your family so they know what your wishes are, they know what's important to you or not important to you. This goes across the board. We just need to talk about this stuff so people are aware, and your families and friends and people around you know what you want. Before you even do any forms, that's the biggest thing, is empowering them to be able to make those decisions for you, and then making their load lighter because they know what you want and don't want. They're not second guessing under all that stress and emotional strain at the time. So I can't emphasize having conversations enough. They're really important. And think about it and plan for it yourself. Really think about what's important to you and what your wishes are and what your values are around what medical treatment you would like to receive, or what interventions you would like or not like. So I can't stress that enough. Another aspect and conversation is really important in this topic as well is organ donation. A lot of people don't have conversations. They might tick the register, which is important in Australia, and you would need to check in your country what the process is. But here we need to register with Donate Life. We need to make it known, fill out the form and have yourself registered on the list. But more importantly, you need to let your family know, because if there is a situation where you can donate your organs, they will always ask the family, and then if the family aren't aware of your wishes and aren't sure, if they say no, then even if you've registered, the family get the final say and they won't proceed with donating your organs. So if that's something really important to you, that's something you'd really like to have happen to your body if the situation arose, then make sure you register and make sure you let your family know that that's your wishes and how you feel about that, so that if the situation came about, they could say yes on your behalf, and then the donation can proceed. So really important around organ donation to have that happen. Finally, another plan that I do specifically as a doula in working with people who are moving into the end of life phase and who are a terminal and dying is to create what's called an end of life plan. Now, this is specific to the dying phase. We often do all this other planning, but we don't consider the dying phase and where we would like to die, who we would want near us or around us, what sort of comfort we would like, what things bring us comfort and would help that dying process be more at ease for us. You know, what would help us if we're in pain or stressed or emotional. You know, are there things, is there music that would soothe you? Is there particular comfort things like particular quilts or pillows that would make you more comfortable? Are there certain people that, you know, you would want to see? Are there different spiritual aspects or practices that would, you know, help you feel at ease that would be important for you to have when you're dying? So all of those things is what we cover in what's called an end of life plan. And we sit down and we work it all out and we write it all down. So again, the family know, gives them some direction as to what you would like during that phase when, and potentially they will be caring for you and at least around. And if they know that, you know, if they could play certain music or have a particular scent that, you know, an essential oil that might help you be at ease or calm you, or, you know, having some prayer or having some Buddhist chanting, you know, whatever it is, whatever it would help to make you feel more comfortable when you're in the dying phase, then that's really important to have, and for them to have that direction so they can provide that for you. So that's another part of planning that often people don't consider, and it's not often talked about, but really important. It can make a big difference to not only the person dying, but to the caregivers and the people around the person who is dying. I'd like to talk now about digital planning. This is quite a new concept. It's really only with the advancements of technology and the speed that technology is taking over our world, essentially. We're doing more and more online. We're being asked to do more things online. You know, now we all do our banking online and pay our bills online. You know, we operate big part of our lives using technology. So people aren't quite aware of the fact that you need to consider your digital footprint, because now we have a lot of information stored on our computers, on our devices, and we're subscribed to lots of things. So it's really important to consider your digital planning, and I'll just cover a couple of aspects of that. So firstly is to consider what your digital assets are. So these are subscriptions, anything online that could be be of value, including your equipment. That's a digital asset. So making a list of your digital assets is a good start. Creating a password manager list, so whether you do that online or, you know, old school, like writing it down somewhere so people can actually access your devices to get whatever information it is on your devices that they need to access. Really important that that's considered. We also use a lot of social media now. So there's a lot of photos, there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of information on our social media sites that, you know, really we need to consider what we would like to have happen to that. Would we like that to be memorialised? Would we like our families to have access to that information? Are we happy for it to just be deleted once we've died? So we need to sort of write down a bit of a social media list of what social media we're using and where it is and what we'd like done with that information, so that our families know how to manage that once we've died. a new thing now, which some lawyers are onto. A few years ago, they had no idea. And I guess that's the thing, is the law's not keeping up with the technology. But that's to have a digital will. So not only having your regular will, but also having a digital will, which, manages those digital assets and expresses what happens to them and who they go to and how they're sorted out. And alongside that is to nominate a digital executor. So again, not just having your regular executor for your regular will, but having a digital executor. These can be the same person. You can bundle it all together for that one person to manage, or you might like to nominate somebody else to be your digital executor. So their role is specifically to have passwords, have access to your computer and your devices, and manage, closing down accounts, sorting out your assets, doing what a regular executor would do, but do that online. So again, another important role, you best talk to the person you're going to nominate. You would probably want somebody who has a bit of tech savvy about them, so they know how to go in and do all of the things that you need them to do. So yeah, it's a new thing that people just aren't aware of. It's, I sit down, I run a seminar on this topic, and people are quite a bit overwhelmed when they start writing down exactly what they have online. So it's worth doing, worth thinking about, worth managing and keeping on top of, because we're always subscribing to things and updating things and getting so much information online that it's really important that we tend to that aspects of our own planning and prepare for that and help support people. So that's an easy process for them as well. When my dad died, I couldn't access anything because I had no passwords. There was a whole lot of information lost because I just couldn't do anything about it. So it's really important that your loved ones can do that and manage that easily and not be burdened again with another mess to have to try and sort through and clean up. So the last bit of planning that is worth considering is the planning up to somebody dies. We often don't consider, even funeral planning. People leave planning funerals to the last minute. It's so often, and then the family are in stress, they're emotional, they're making decisions that aren't clear, and that often they will regret, or that will lead them to being in more financial hardship because they've had to pay for a funeral that cost them a lot of money because they hadn't considered or had time to shop around. So I'm a big promoter of doing funeral planning early. You don't have to sign up with anyone, but just think about what you would like and shop around and have a bit of an idea of what it costs so that you can make those provisions for your funeral. But there's a few other little bits also to consider, which I will go through. So firstly, it's good to have a list of people that you would like to be notified about your death. So we used to have address books. Now a lot of people have contacts online. So having something somewhere where somebody can access it so they know who the important people are that you really would like to be notified about your death. Again, when my dad died, I just had an address book. There were some really old friends of his that I couldn't contact because I had no idea of their, they'd moved or didn't have their updated information. And a couple of them 2 years or 3 years down the track finally contacted me and found me, and then I had to tell them that Dad had died, and it was really sad because they would have liked to have honoured him at that time. So it's really important that you have somewhere a bit of a list of the important people and keep it updated with their details so that they can be easily notified if you were to die. Another great thing to have is what's called, some people call it a death box, but I don't really like that term. Maybe a life box, but somewhere where you can put all your important documents. So it's easily, if you were to die, people can put their hands on all that important information, about insurances, don't know, mortgages, banking information, birth certificates, marriage certificates, all that stuff that really they will need to sort your estate out. Have it accessible. Yes, you need to keep it safe, but also have it all together so it's accessible for somebody to be able to just go and put their hands on it and you know, be able to do what they need to do, rather than trying to troll through reams and reams of paper, or, you know, just trying to find the information that they need. So a really good thing to do is just start gathering that information together. I briefly touched on funeral planning. Like I said, you know, you can start just shopping around with funeral directors, finding somebody who will perhaps do a service that you would like, and even just start thinking about your funeral and your wishes and start talking to your family about that, so they're a bit aware of what you would like for your funeral, and that really makes it easier for them at the time, so they know that they're creating something that you would have liked, and they're not trying to second guess what was important to you and what's you know, what sort of service you would like. So yeah, again, start your funeral planning, and you can do a directive. Again, I offer seminars where people come along and we go through all the choices, and it really gets them started in writing a funeral directive down that they can then talk to their families about and have it written about what they would like, so that if something happened, the family can easily pick up that directive and go through it and know what you would like for your funeral. When people are dying, often it becomes really important for them what they leave behind for their families. So there's sort of a couple of different ways that you can do that, and then I support people to do. And one is to create a memory box, and this is essentially a little box or a big box, depending on what you want to put in it, where you can leave messages for loved ones, or create little trinkets or things that you'd like to put in them, so that people can open that box and it'll be full of memories of you and things that you would like them to remember you by. So yeah, creating a memory box is a lovely thing to do, especially if you're ill and you've got some time to reflect on that. And you know, you've got time to write things, letters, or express your feelings to people. You can create a memory box. Another aspect is what's called a legacy message. It's essentially can be a videoed or audio taped message where you might like to leave a message for people and have it not necessarily in the written form, but in a more audio or visual way. And it can be for lots of people then, not just for specific people. And it can be kept then as a bit of an archive, you know, for future generations to see. And that can be expressing your story. You can bring your life history into it if, you know, you want it to be more historical about stories or events from your life that you think are important for future generations to know about. Because often that oral history and those stories are what are lost when people die. You know, we can always go to ancestry.com and search people out through records and find bits of information, but the stories that people hand on through generations is that they're often what's lost. So it can be a really nice thing to have those documented so that future generations can look at them. So that's another thing that you could consider doing as part of your planning. So that's quite a list of things to consider as part of your end of life planning. It's things that I often say, just, you know, start stepping through each component, do little bit by little bit. It can be really overwhelming. Seek support, you know, like I said, get legal support or financial advice, whatever support, medical support from a doula like myself, or a counsellor or a spiritual person. But really is great if you can start doing some planning and have it in place. It makes a big difference to families, makes a huge difference to the outcomes for them with their grief and their bereavement. It just complicates things more and can create lots of family disharmony when things haven't been sorted out or haven't been written down, and nothing's clear, because then they're trying to make it up and they're stressed and emotional. So the more you can support them and have things written down, have had conversations, like I said, even if you haven't written things down, at least have the conversations and let people know, so there is some clarity there, and they know what they need to do if the situation arrives. So I hope that's helpful. I hope it opens it up for you a little bit to get you started. I didn't intend to overwhelm you, so I'm sorry if you're a bit glass-eyed and overwhelmed. It's not meant to overwhelm you. It was meant to just hopefully inform you and help you start your process. So first step, get a will. That would be my first step. Have some conversations, and good luck with it. And if you need support, please contact me. Come to one of my seminars. Yeah, that's what I'm here for, is to really support and guide you so that you're not overwhelmed. And if I can't help you, then I can at least point you in the right direction or give you some resources to get you started. So good luck with it, and thank you for joining me today.